Hey, what's up? How we doing, everybody? Welcome in. We are a DraftKings show called The Slate. We join you up until 6-ish on this Tuesday night. Will be mostly football in this show, but there is baseball possibly on the horizon. If Gary and Thorne jumps out of his seat based on a report, based on a signing in Major League Baseball. But yes, roster construction underway on the diamond. 40-man rosters are being set this evening. So, yeah, stuff's happening. We'll get to that. If anything groundbreaking or if anyone has a take, we will definitely discuss. Gary and Thorne is here. Matt LaMarca here. Brendan Glasheen. Daniel and Eamon behind the scenes. Feel free to jump in the chat. YouTube, Twitch. We'll take your feedback, your questions, your concerns, anything else that really is on your mind. And we also are streaming live on DK Nation over on Twitter. Hope you're both doing well. Good to talk to you on this Tuesday. LaMarca, how'd the Superbook picks go this weekend?
Well, we finally took an L. We finally took an L.
I did not know that before I asked. I was not setting you up to fail. I promise.
No, that's okay. I've taken plenty of victory laps, and I think I've stayed pretty level-headed for the most part. It just didn't go my way. We were 1-4. Well, 2-3 or 1-4, depending on what you did with the Bills-Vikings game.
Right.
I picked the Vikings in the article and recommended switching to the Bills if Josh Allen played. So I'm counting it as a loss for my official record. But if you just peruse the picks, it might look like a 2-3 week. But I picked some bad games. I like the Packers. I liked the Lions. Both of them ended up covering, but they didn't make it to my final pick sheet. So it is what it is. We'll look to get back on the horse this week. I mean, I've built up enough of a cushion that you can take a 1-4 week, and, as long as you don't make it a habit, things are going to be okay.
Fair enough. And there are some games this week with some road favorites that are just, it takes a lot of guts to want to get in on these road favorites at this time of year, especially some of those primetime spots, 4:00 window, Sunday night, Monday night next week, road favorites everywhere. And just to name a few, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, 5-point favorite on the road. Dallas on the road as a favorite against Minnesota. They've won 7 straight. Chiefs on Monday night against the Chargers, or that's Sunday night, excuse me. Sunday night, Chiefs, 6.5-point favorite at Los Angeles. The Niners, after just laying 8 Sunday night, they're laying 8 again on the road at Cliff and Kyler, or Colt McCoy, whoever the quarterback's going to be. Oh, Colt. Yeah, the offense actually looks pretty legit with Colt McCoy. I'm going to say that. I'm interested to hear what Hard Knocks, in-season Hard Knocks looks like from that perspective. But got the DraftKings Sportsbook up with all the lines. Got the DFS contest for the weekend if we need to address that. Gary, and what's up with you? What's on your mind after week 10?
Not too much. I mean, it was
well. I mean, come on, Tua MVP. Like that's
look,
on your mind.
I pride myself in being a relatively level-headed Dolphins fan.
Oh, level-headed, that word again.
I will say, just kind of like to put this in perspective for non-Dolphins fans. I mean, I know I'm talking to someone who lives in Boston, so these concepts might go over Glash's head. It's not even about like cheering for a bad team. It's about cheering for a team that hasn't been fun in 25 years. Okay. Like, try to name the best offensive player on the Dolphins since 2000 that isn't Ricky Williams.
Ronnie Brown.
I would say Brandon Marshall.
Right. And Marshall, not even his best seasons of his career.
Ronnie Brown and the Wildcat? Come on.
No. Sure. Ronnie. Yeah,
that was
Ronnie
a fun
Brown.
Gimmick.
Think about like if Ronnie Brown is your second best offensive player of the last 25 years, that pretty much encapsulates what watching the Dolphins is like. Yes, they've won a couple games. They're constantly finishing 8-8. Like, that's the curse of being a Dolphins fan, is you're never bad enough to actually get anywhere. This is just fun. I'm having fun with it. He's not winning MVP. It's just not going to happen. I think even if this becomes like a real discussion, the fact he misses 3 games, the counting stats just aren't going to be what Mahomes' counting stats are going to be like. And I think that's going to get held against him when these things start getting like really micromanaged. I think the fact that Tyreek Hill is probably going to win Offensive Player of the Year has to hurt Tua winning MVP. I don't think you can have an MVP and an Offensive Player of the Year who are different people on the same team. Like that kind of just negates the whole purpose of this. It really exposes the fraud that is these NFL awards. I posted this on Twitter last night. He's not even listed as a candidate. So this is kind of a stupid debate to have.
Right.
I honestly think the consolation prize Tua should get this season is Comeback Player of the Year. I think this is a dumb award that doesn't make a lot of sense anyway. The comeback, I guess, has to be from the season prior. You could argue that he has a case. Literally, his coach and GM were constantly undercutting him at every single turn. No one thought he was going to survive the summer. They wanted to bring in any other quarterback to replace him. Couldn't find anybody. But this is someone who people were literally calling for to be like, just like retire out of pity. Like, please don't make us watch you get hurt again. And suddenly
even the Dolphins didn't seem to have a ton of confidence in him.
No, almost none. So I think like Comeback Player of the Year, I'm sort of surprised that like no one else is kind of bringing this up. And again, I guess that's because the comeback can't be from the season that you're currently playing for whatever reason for this dumb award that never makes any sense anyway. But that would be the award that I would actually be like trying to start a campaign for Tua for is Tua for Comeback Player of the Year.
It is kind of funny because like Geno Smith's not technically coming back from anything.
No,
he's coming back from being irrelevant, I suppose, but it's not like he's overcoming an injury or he just got another chance and he's taking advantage of it.
Even like Derrick Henry and Christian McCaffrey, like, yes, they got hurt, but they also played less. Like they didn't get hurt for the whole season. Like I can understand like Travis Etienne, who we didn't even see. Like, I guess that kind of makes sense to me. But yeah, like Derrick Henry played like half of last season. It's a silly
award. It's the same as, the most improved player in the NBA. There's just no real definition as to what it actually entails. And it's kind of like the storyline award,
Which
and I do
who's
think
gotten more press than Tua the last.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I do think that Tua's storyline is as good as any of these guys, but yeah, for some reason we've just decided he's not a candidate for this.
Yeah.
8 games last year for Derrick Henry. 8.
Yeah. So like, I don't know, like, oh wow, a running back got hurt. What a comeback story. That's never happened before. The Geno Smith, like, look, I actually think the Geno Smith one is a cool example of what this award could be. Like Geno Smith is almost what I wish, to Matt's point. I wish this was more the narrative in the NBA Most Improved Player Award. Like I wish it was actually like a guy who we thought was done, who came back and made something of his career, like someone off the streets who becomes like a really good 7th man on a playoff team or something like that. Not just, hey, which lottery pick took the biggest leap from their second season, which every lottery pick is supposed to do. And that's the thing, like, oh, Saquon Barkley's healthy, so he's playing well. That should happen. He was a top 5 pick in the NFL. Like Geno Smith being a career backup, being someone who most casual fans probably thought wasn't even in the league anymore, to being a very successful starting quarterback. Like that's a cool story. And I actually hope Geno does win this award because that's the kind of thing I want this award to promote. Not just like, oh, very good player got hurt, comes back, is healthy, is still a very good player. Like, congrats. I don't know what you want me to do with that.
It seems like the rubric to grade these awards, that this is playing out like MVP in the sense that, well, Saquon's team, better record. They'll be a playoff team. We feel more confident the Giants will be a playoff team than Geno Smith and the Seahawks. Maybe, because there's 3 teams, I guess, in a race in the NFC East, 2 as of right now in the NFC West. So I guess Geno maybe has a better shot, but they're all playing for a wild card right now, it feels like, meaning that the Giants and the Seahawks. But in the MVP discussion, you need to have that top 2 seed and basically be a statistical leader in the major categories. And, let me finish the sentence what these guys are getting at. They think these awards are silly because they're silly to bet on. Like, most of them are good stories, but they're hard to bet on. That's why you guys are frustrated.
They are the awards though, like for the NBA in particular, they're the awards you can actually find the most value on. Like they're the ones where you can look at a guy who's maybe 50 or 60 or 70 to 1 and say that guy has a legitimate shot at this award that does not make any sense, because how can you ever bet the favorite on an award where I don't even know what the parameters for the voting process are, where MVP is like so often like, look, I'm someone who voted or put a future bet on Luka Doncic entering his second season for MVP because he was sitting at like 75-1, has an amazing season. And you're like, wow, I was kind of right about that. But he's going to finish fourth in MVP voting. Like that doesn't do anything for you. Like, congratulations, you were right. You got to the end of the year and your guy was maybe like 14-1, not 75-1, but you know, you're not going to get a payout on that. So it's the silliness does open opportunity for profit, like big profit. But yeah, you have to just know that betting these awards is like asking to lose money.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll stop award talk then. If that's what we
no, just that award.
I do want to go back. You bring up the Tua MVP case.
Yeah. Plus 8,000 a couple weeks ago. It's worth discussing.
I agree with Garian's take here. He's down to now plus 350. He's trailing only Patrick Mahomes. And if you look at the efficiency statistics, Tua has a case, right? He leads the league in touchdown percentage and quarterback rating, adjusted yards per attempt, QBR, and he's got the #1 grade for quarterbacks on Pro Football Focus. That said, he's not going to win the MVP. I just can't see it happening. Patrick Mahomes just has such an edge in raw statistics, and I'm not buying the Dolphins as a top contender in the AFC just yet.
That might be true, but if they get to the 1 seed somehow and
their schedule gets pretty tough down the stretch of the season.
The Dolphins?
They still have at least one more with the Bills. They have one more with the Jets, which looks like a relatively tough game at this point.
At Niners, at Chargers, they're at Buffalo, to your point, home Green Bay. And I think they wrap with New England.
They've got at least 2 more games. They got New England and the Jets. I can't remember. I think the Jets is in Miami. New England's in New England, right?
Correct. Yep.
So he's got.
I think the best bet at this point is taking Josh Allen at plus 600.
Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, the guy was considered a slam dunk favorite 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
He had a couple poor showings. He is battling an injury of some degree of, we don't know how serious it is, but he was in the lineup, and for all intents and purposes, he should have won against the Vikings last week.
Yep.
He didn't. It was one of the flukier losses I can remember, right? They had the ball up 5 up 4, excuse me, with less than a minute left, and the other team had no timeouts. All they had to do was complete the quarterback center exchange, and they're going to win the game. They could have taken a safety, and they still would have been in good position to win the game. The only thing you cannot do is fumble. Yep. And that's what happened. And
but he fumbled. That's the problem. He did it, not the running back.
I'm just saying that it was a fluky loss. I'm not worried about the Bills at all. I'm not worried about Josh Allen at all. The bigger takeaway is the Vikings, right? You mentioned the Vikings being home underdogs to the Cowboys.
Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me. All they've done is play in 1-score games, and they've managed to win a lot of games that they should not have, last week included.
Yep.
So I'm going to continue fading the Vikings. And, if I have to keep watching videos of dudes dancing shirtless on a plane, so be it.
I don't have any chains.
I mean, I would say the Cowboys, they are also a team that maybe has outperformed sort of. Their record is better than maybe some of the underlying statistics indicate, although their defense is still legitimately
and
one of the
most
best
of their games were played with a backup quarterback.
Yeah, that as well. So I would agree with Matt here. I think the initial lean, even as a road favorite, would be to the Cowboys. And I would say just to wrap up the MVP discussion entirely, the thing with Mahomes that I think is a really interesting point when it comes down to like what the conversations we're going to be having 2 months from now, when it really is like submit your MVP vote time. We always talk about just the sort of the malaise that MVP voters get, like submitting the same name over and over and over again. Like you get guys who are just tired of like, oh yeah, Mahomes was great again. Like he's always great. Who cares?
Right.
the built-in narrative. Again, it's kind of funny that Tyreek Hill is playing such a major role in the MVP candidacy of two quarterbacks simultaneously. But Tyreek Hill winning Offensive Player of the Year, not only does it hurt Tua's candidacy, it helps Patrick Mahomes' candidacy.
Yeah.
Because you look at the numbers and go, wow, this guy lost the best receiver in the NFL, arguably, and he's still the best player in football. Like, I think that wrinkle in Mahomes' candidacy is such an important thing to remember, because it creates a fresh narrative around Mahomes. It gives us a reason to reappreciate how great this guy is. And I think it's his award to lose. And that's why he's justifiably still at plus 125.
Yeah, it's a great point, because typically quarterbacks are on the move, but in this case, it was a big time receiver. And now receivers have been on the move, like Devontae Adams. That's not going well in Vegas. Like, say that went well for Aaron Rodgers. Maybe Aaron Rodgers is in the race again if Green Bay ended up having an expected Aaron Rodgers like season, which is a back-to-back MVP. If they put it together without Adams, you make a case there too, where Adams could be helping Derek Carr and Aaron Rodgers is fine without Adams. That's not the case, but it's a great point. It's a very good point. It'd be the equivalent would be a star player leaves in free agency in the NBA, and star A does just fine without star B.
It's literally the Jokic case from last season in the NBA. Obviously, it might not be as dire. Like, I think Juju Smith-Schuster is better than Will Barton in this comparison. But
Travis Kelce.
Yeah, true. Travis Kelce. That's a good point. But yeah, this is a situation where, again, you've got a guy who like is an MVP, who lost part of his supporting cast and is still producing as well, if not better, without that person in tow. So I just think the candidacy is so strong for Mahomes that we have to look for other candidates to talk about on First Take all week. Obviously, that's just how this works. But don't ignore why Mahomes is the overwhelming favorite right now. He's got a great case.
Do you get First Take in Canada?
Yes. Oh my! I don't live in Siberia.
Why do you watch it?
I mean, I don't watch it, but like the clips pop up on my Twitter feed all the time. Like, you know,
just ignore it.
First Take, Tehke.
Yeah.
Take.
Well,
First Take.
Well, whenever when your phone, like if you have your phone here, but your phone's listening to you. So the more and more you bring it up, you're just going to keep getting those clips. Gary.
I should really stop calling Stephen A. Smith every night before I go to sleep. You're right. It's messing up my algorithm.
Or like just keep making Air Bud references. I love that, by the way. That was phenomenal. The Tua comeback player of the year inside joke at Gary and Thorne with an E at the end over on Twitter. It was just fantastic. That clown, though, scares me. Gives you the chills.
Not a good guy. Not a good guy.
Horrible person. Terrible person. Okay, where were we? So, award talk. And Lamarca, in that award talk, gave out a pick. And Cowboys are getting all the love, though. Money's coming in on Dallas. 70% of the money coming in on Dallas. So, if you like the Cowboys, do it now, because that line will move, I think. Or it will stay where it is. I don't know. I've seen some 1.5, some ones.
Yeah, my thing is always that there's not a huge, like, this is not a line that I feel like you need to rush out and take, but it's also not a line that there's going to be much value gained by waiting, you know, like once you're talking.
Right, unless there was an injury concern, which in this case, I don't think there is, right? Well, Zeke, if you care much about Zeke, I don't know. Dallas still runs the ball well without Zeke.
He's not going to move the line.
No, he won't.
He might move the line in the Vikings direction, honestly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, right. There's not much concern. Minnesota everyone came out of that Buffalo game healthy, I think. So yeah, fair point. Maybe don't wait, but I don't know. Dallas, don't be scared that they're a favorite on the road. It's hard to trust Mike McCarthy, though. Trust Kirk Cousins or Mike McCarthy. And it's Kirk Cousins at 4:30, not 1. Big difference.
Oh yeah. Wait, is that America's game of the week? Is that part of the Kirk Cousins thing?
I would imagine Cincinnati, Pittsburgh is probably CBS at 4:25.
Oh, what a great matchup.
What else?
I love watching the Steelers.
Yeah. Well, that was a great game week 1
that I'm probably going to be on this week. The Pittsburgh Steelers.
That defense, TJ Watt changes everything, right?
Changes everything. And I love getting Mike Tomlin with points, right? I've talked about this numerous times this year. If you can get the Steelers as an underdog, you should strongly consider doing it. For some reason, that guy gets those guys going, right? When it's a nobody believes in you spot, he gets their motor running. And this is just a matchup that's really bad for the Bengals, as we saw in week 1.
Mhm.
They can't block. And the Steelers with TJ Watt, they can rush the passer. So I'd like to see Minkah Fitzpatrick back in the lineup before
I
making
don't
this pick
think
official.
he's going to play. I think they like ruled him out for several weeks.
Okay, well, that's unfortunate, but I still think that I will more than likely be taking the Steelers in the points here.
After week 5, Mike Tomlin covers the spread at a 71% clip in his career from week 5.
Very good coach.
Very good.
Look, I think it matters that this is like a divisional game. And maybe that's just years and years of having this like AFC North rivalry stuff shoved down your throat. But these games tend to just be close. Steelers 5 points at home against the Bengals.
We saw it last night, right? That wasn't expected to be a particularly close game, but you're taking this isn't as many points as Washington, but taking a divisional underdog is an advised strategy a lot of the time.
Right. At home too. Pittsburgh at home in this spot, coming off, the Bengals are coming off a bye. Pardon me. Bengals off a bye. Steelers just played the Saints. That's right. Getting TJ Watt back.
Man, there are some bad games this week. I'm just kind of like going through them. Oh my God. Like in terms of what game would you rather watch of Commanders, Texans, Rams, Saints, Raiders, Broncos?
Can I give you a stat I heard about the Broncos this week?
I wonder if it's the same stat I know.
I hate talking about this team, but
it probably is because it's just so mind-blowing. If the Broncos had scored 18 points in every one of their games this season, they'd be 8-1.
Wow.
And I believe it was the Raiders would be the only loss. The Raiders are the one team that have been able to cause them some trouble defensively, but that's it.
And Denver looked okay offensively in that game. That was their best offensive game.
It's the only game their defenses looked bad. It's the only game Russell Wilson's kind of looked like Russell Wilson, aside from like the first game of the season.
Yeah.
Where they really were. It's kind of funny to think about, like that first game against Seattle, as much as it was a hilarious loss, there was like 2 fumbles at the goal line. Like that offense looked good. There was just some weird turnover stuff and some clock management stuff. It has regressed tenfold throughout the season.
It's the most bizarre situation in the league. I mean, I'm sure there were some people. I'm sure there were some people who thought that Russell Wilson was overrated during his time with the Seahawks, but I don't think anybody expected him to fall from grace this quickly.
In year one, he
legitimately might be the most disliked player in the NFL at this point.
Yeah, he's on Peyton's places this week though, so maybe that'll give him some good PR.
I think he needs to go full heel turn.
Yeah.
Okay. He needs to show up like Ricky Vaughn in Major League 2. All right. Show up with the cutoff vest, the goofy haircut. He needs to just channel his inner wild thing. That's my advice to you. Lay off the danger witches and get your wild thing on.
Have you ever done anything wild?
Denver is the most profitable team this year to the under. 8 of their 9 games have gone under the total. I would imagine that one that did not was that Raiders game in Vegas earlier in the season. I mean, Gary, when you say that, when you look at the games, like, do I want to watch it? Are you also like, I don't even want to touch it from a betting standpoint? Because you're just like, I don't know what the hell's going to happen.
Well, it's tough. I think like the Rams are an interesting example this week of like, generally speaking, I think Stafford's going to play. Like, I think he'll be out of concussion protocol this week and he'll play. Does that matter? I don't know.
I think Kupp won't play. We know that.
He will not. For as good as like McCoy looked and who, like, I think the whole quarterback controversy thing in Arizona is going to be sort of just overblown for fun this week. But, John Wolford did not look great in that game. Like, I think Matthew Stafford can walk back in and be the number 1 quarterback in Los Angeles. But, you've got a game here with a total just over 38 points. Generally speaking, if a team's getting 4 points in that scenario in a game where there's just not going to be a lot of points in general, I'm kind of inclined to just lean with that team. At the same time, like this Cooper Kupp injury might just be the straw that broke the camel's back, right? Like a lot of these guys for the Rams, you won your Super Bowl. I think like, not that anyone quits necessarily, but I don't know, man. Like I just don't know if there's going to be much fight from this Rams team, but I can say the same about the Saints. Like, what have the Saints done in the last 3 weeks, aside from shutting out the Raiders, which in retrospect is getting less and less impressive every single week we are removed from that accomplishment. I just have no faith in either of these teams. Again, if I take the team names away, just looking at the spread and the total, I'd be inclined to say, hey, just take the 4 points with the team that's getting them. But yeah, I have, if I bet these games, I might convince myself to watch them, and that would be a mistake.
Well, and in relation to what happened last night, as gross as it sounds, don't get too excited about Taylor Heineke, I would say, but with Washington. Like, he hasn't been all that good. Now, he's done well against the spread, 8-2-1 in his last 11 against the number. This is a good buy low spot, I think, on Houston, if you're asking me. Houston getting points at home. What's Washington done offensively? Curtis Samuel had some nice.
I mean, they just took 32 on the Eagles, but I agree with your premise.
Well,
I do think Heineke is clearly better than Carson Wentz.
It's not a real 32. It's 26. That was a wacky 6 at the end. Come on, that doesn't go to the offense.
Sorry, just 26. Just 26 on the second best defense in football. I'm with you. I think it's a good spot for the Texans.
Thank you.
I would just say the one worry I have about the Texans, like in general, it's their ability to score points. Washington's biggest strength as a team is their rush defense. Their second DVOA against the run. If the Texans can't run the ball, I don't know how they move it at all. And yes, it's a big line for the Commanders, but like, I don't know, man. I don't think the Texans can score more than like 13 points in this game. So
yeah, this is a good like matchups versus numbers spot, right? Because I do think that if you look at the matchups, you can tell a pretty convincing story that the Commanders will win the game. If you look at the numbers, and you're probably going to say, well, what the hell has Washington done to be favored by 3.5 on the road against anyone?
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I am more of the school that you bet the numbers. You don't necessarily bet by the matchup, because it's just a really weird sport where weird things happen. Like,
true. Yeah.
Like the Commanders scoring 26 points against the Eagles. Nobody saw that coming. So
26. That's right.
That's what I said. Sorry. Don't mean to offend you, Mr. Clash.
Well, come on. That's just using that extra 6 to help enhance your argument. But we know that was.
Hey, it counts in the Pythagorean record. That's all
there
I know.
Well, they've won 4 or 5 games, and they're the Texans team total in this
Should
game.
be 5 in a row. You want?
Yeah.
Not to keep beating on the Vikings, but they're down 10 in the fourth quarter of that game. If Taylor Heineke doesn't get a little bit careless, throw an interception, they might be winners of 5 in a row. And again, it's another example of the Vikes snatching victory from the jaws of defeat.
They're an interesting team, because I think going into yesterday's game, I tried to dismiss their like recent quote unquote success with a really soft schedule. Like, you played a Vikings team that clearly has issues, but is great in one possession games. That terrible Thursday night game against the Bears before Matt Eberflus was like, oh my God, epiphany. What if Justin Fields became a running quarterback? And
that was when that was Thursday night. Richard Sherman lost his mind. They must have watched that post-game show, because Sherman lost his mind. Like, utilize this man's strengths, and they've done that since.
And then they had they beat the Colts. Congrats. Like, there weren't a lot of they beat the Packers. Really impressive wins in that stretch of time, but they just beat the Eagles. Like, I do think you at some point have to give them credit for at least being like a competent team. I don't think they're a good team, but I also don't think they're a bad team. I think they're a competent team.
You hit the nail on the head, and that's what makes this such a weird NFL season to handicap, is that if you don't beat the Bills, beat the Eagles, or beat the Chiefs, none of your wins are going to look very impressive. Every other team, right? We're saying that their win over a 1-loss Vikings team is just,
Well, they lost. They did lose that game.
Right.
Like, if they had won it, I think that would have been an impressive win, obviously. But yeah, no, I get what you're saying. It's hard to rack up impressive victories in this league. Like, every time a team wins, I feel like I keep hearing like, you're right. Oh yeah, well, it was against the Patriots, or oh yeah, well, it was against the Chargers, and you're like, I think those are good wins. I don't know. It's tough time.
Fair enough. And Washington's like in it. They're on the bubble. They're the number 8 team in the NFC right now, only trailing San Francisco, which great point. That's a good example. They look incompetent offensively off a bye in the first half. Then they hold the Chargers scoreless the entire second half. Arrested Niners team back to full strength. What else we like this week? Anything else we want to hit on? Buffalo's laying 8 at home at 1:00. We talked so much about Josh Allen. Snow game. Yeah. Wind and snow in the forecast in Buffalo.
I'm glad you bring that up. I'd like take this time to talk about why I like overs in these games. Everybody puts on their meteorologist hat. Everybody thinks that they are like outsmarting the book. We're going to take the under on the weather. Weather doesn't matter in the NFL.
There was a time before you keep going. There was a time called Wild Weather Wednesday on this stream. Okay. And that was a real thing. And those offenses stunk in those games. So we were scarred for a year and a half with that. I'll
tell you that.
There's a betting term in NFL betting. It's called the snover. All right. This game is setting up for a perfect snover spot.
I like it. And I think this number will go down probably throughout the week as this narrative continues to build.
You wait, and then you take that snover, baby.
Okay. Because I think too, like in a general sense, when you're dealing with like snow, we're really talking about traction issues for the players.
Mm-hmm.
Traction issues affect defenders more than they affect offensive players because the offensive player knows what route he wants to run or knows which way he wants to go. Defensive players are reacting to what is happening. It's harder to react without traction than it is to act with traction, I guess. Also, kind of like an interesting sort of like subplot in these games is the kicking situation. Now, obviously, if a bunch of kicks get missed, that does not help you reach an over. However,
correct.
If kicks aren't being taken because teams are afraid to kick, that promotes more points.
Put you in
so like snow could actually be good for offense. We're not talking like there's always that one game in Buffalo where it's literally like 7 feet of snow. Yeah, that's going to affect how effective offenses are.
Well, the wind against New England last December, the wind is more of a factor.
I would like to thank that game though. That was the game. That was the day I knew Mac Jones sucked. And I will forever remember that game as the day that Bill Belichick was agreeing with me that Mac Jones sucked.
Right. The 3-pass Mac Jones game.
Yeah.
I would also, to support LaMarcus' point, you'd have to have a competent run game if you want to just stick to offense here.
Mm-hmm.
We get Jacoby Brissett for, I think, 2 more games before we see Deshaun Watson.
Yep.
So, okay.
He can practice this week, but he can't play.
So Cleveland plays keep away.
Are they on bye next week? Because I think it's 11. I think it's.
Oh, you're right. They are on bye next week.
Right. Sorry. So 2 more weeks. Pardon me. 1 more game, 2 more weeks. Yes. So we like Cleveland's run game with Chubb and Hunt. Buffalo does not have a running game. But that would help. That would help an over because I think their aggressive nature, their really aggressive tactics might actually bode well for an over.
But also, we saw this in that Patriot Bills game last year. If there's a quarterback in the league who can cut through the wind, like if his arm is fine, maybe this is a good litmus test for how healthy Josh Allen's arm actually is. But I don't think you worry too much about arm strength, or Josh Allen's arm strength and ability to have a good game if there's 15-mile-per-hour winds. He's the kind of quarterback where that shouldn't matter.
Fair enough. Is there a signing in baseball that we need to hit on before we leave? Is there one that jumps out? Tyler Anderson went somewhere, right? That's a big deal.
I mean, Zion's out tonight. That's kind of big news.
NBA
in general. Okay. But no, nothing overly crazy with baseball. Really, we just have
Are the Angels contenders now with Tyler Anderson in their rotation?
No. I'll direct everyone to Matt LaMarca's write-up blurb on the DK Live app. But to paraphrase, baked-in regression plus Angels regression is not going to be a fun thing for Tyler Anderson.
It's a coward move by Tyler Anderson. I'll come out and say it. He could have had $20 million for 1 year to play for the best team in baseball, but instead he took $39 million for 3 years because he doesn't believe in himself. He's the anti-Aaron Judge. and he's going to have a 4+ ERA next year. Lock it up.
To go across the street and pitch for
I will say the Rizzo thing's interesting, just in the sense that he was so ridiculously good at Yankee Stadium. It's a boon to his value to re-sign at Yankee Stadium. I think he had a 139 WRC plus at home last season. On top of that, Rizzo is someone who you can obviously, there's going to be a list of like 25 left-handed batters that everyone's just going to start going crazy for next season because of the normalization of their batting average based on the lack of shift. I think Rizzo's probably closer to a 245 hitter than he is a 220 hitter. So again, staying at Yankee Stadium, having that little boost next season with the lack of a shift, I do think this helps Rizzo be a better fantasy player than he would have been anywhere else, aside from Coors, obviously. So yeah, it was a good signing for his value heading into 2023.
Like Mr. Deed said, I love New York, and that is what Rizzo clearly believes, taking a little less. And apparently,
first person to say it.
Jeff Passan notes, Jeff Passan, ESPN, Rizzo has grown very close with Aaron Judge over the last 2 years. So is this a recruiting pitch? This feels like NBA free agency. Oh yeah, his buddy, they re-signed his pal, so that will help Judge stay. Maybe that's why the Yankees were willing to. Well, he took a discount, I suppose. Rizzo. What?
Maybe that's why the Yankees were willing to pay him less.
Yeah,
it's the Aaron Judge thing. It's kind of just beaten to death at this point.
No, guys,
right.
they're going to consider giving him the captaincy if he signs.
The Yankees are going to give him the money,
right?
And it's just a debate of it's whether or not he wants to be there or not.
Last thing before we go, because Garion mentioned it. Pelicans are laying 2 with Zion out against Memphis at home. Are you looking to the Pelicans, or now you go to the other side? Or do you have are you looking at this more DFS wise, like stack up some Pelicans?
I think I would just take the over.
Okay.
Excuse me. Sorry. Retract that. Blah, blah, blah. I think I would take the under because Zion, 1, he's a great offensive player. 2, sneaky terrible defensively this season. I think the Pelicans will be a lot better on defense without Zion tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see that game staying under the number. Like, I think Zion not playing is worth like 4 or 5 points to the total. I think he really has been that bad on defense.
Okay. Jaren Jackson Jr. back tonight from Memphis.
Also, Jaren Jackson's a great defensive player.
Right, but he's in the lineup, right?
I don't think we've heard yet whether or not he says he's going to be playing tonight, but it hasn't been officially announced that he'll be active.
Okay.
Also, no Desmond Bane. So, you're losing a lot of really good offensive players and bad defender. Bane's not a bad defender, but
Chris Haynes is reporting that Jackson intends to make his season debut. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Words matter. Blurbs matter. All right.
I intend to do some work this evening, but we'll see if that happens.
See.
Do some work? What do you mean? What are you talking about?
Some writing. Always got writing to do, Glash. You know how it is.
Why did you bring that up now? We're still on the show.
He's saying he intends to do it. He's making a joke.
Oh, got it. I missed that. Sorry, I missed the joke. All right, we should go. Hey, that was fun.
Take the over on that because it went over Glash's head. Ayo.
Wow. On that note, we will leave. Madden's coming up here on the DraftKings YouTube and Twitch platforms. Thanks for keeping it with us on DK Nation on Twitter. Lamarca, Garion, you both have a fantastic evening. Great stuff. Go bet some MVP futures. That work for you guys?
Yes.
Josh Allen.
I intend to follow along in how you guys do. Thanks to Eamon and Daniel behind the scenes. You all have a great night. The Slate is back tomorrow. You can also catch the Sweat at 11 a.m. Eastern. Good night.